and welcome to Happy You Asked, the podcast where we explore a little thing called happiness, one awkward conversation at a time. I am Erin Claire, your host, who someone recently called a grown-up Wednesday Addams, and it hurt. The accuracy actually, I was so called out. I was like, damn, I am.
Compliment. I think that's a good thing.
I know. I was just like, yes, that is who I am. I am joined today by Dr. Catherine Pierce. Dr. Pierce served as the Poet Laureate of Mississippi from 2021 to 2025 and is the author of 4 books of poems, most recently Danger Days, published by Saturnalia Books in 2020. A memoir entitled Foxes for Everybody and a new poetry collection entitled Dear Beast are both forthcoming in 2026 from Northwestern University Press and Saturnalia Books. I can't say that. Saturnalia Books, respectively. Like the words were coming out and I was ignoring that they weren't coming out right, but
Right.
it's fine. Yeah. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, get you, the Best American Poetry Review, The Nation, the Pushcart Prize Anthology, and elsewhere. That was like top 10 greatest hits I just read off, girl. Dang. From 2007 to 2024, she was professor of English and co-director of the creative writing program at Mississippi State University. And she recently moved her family back to her home state of Delaware. In 2025, launched Studio and Craft. It's a poetry community offering online workshops, sessions, and manuscript consultations. Katie also happens to be my most favorite living poet, hands down. I won't even apologize to anyone. It's you. End of story. Bam. So,
Thank you, Erin.
welcome
That's
to Happy You Ask,
incredibly
Katie.
nice. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to get to talk to you and see you again after many years since grad school.
Yes, Katie and I did our doctoral work together at the University of Missouri Columbia, Mizzou, many years
Mizzou.
ago. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was at Katie's wedding. I will have you know.
Yes,
It
you sure
was
were. It was a
amazing.
fun
It was
wedding.
beautiful. That was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
A lot of
I want to go
dancing.
back there. Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah.
So I always start with the same question, Katie. What is your definition of happiness?
Boy, you don't start with an easy one, Erin. That's a big one. It's my definition of happiness. Okay. I'm going to punt it a little and say that I don't think that I have a definition of happiness. Um, but I can think about it in terms of feelings, like physical in the body feelings. Which is, it can feel to me like anything from that sort of lofting that you get when you're excited. Like it feels like, your whole chest is kind of filling up like with air, helium or whatever.
Hmm.
And also I think for me, it feels like contentment, like that feeling of my body is relaxed. I
Mm.
feel content. I feel good and whole and who I am. So those are those sort of physical feelings. I think that for me, happiness looks like excitement for things, looking forward to things, being having things that I want or want to accomplish and being able to kind of move toward those things. And also just being able to spend as much time as possible doing things that I love, like being with my family or my friends or being outside and just kind of, you know, being around the natural world. So there are lots of things, and I don't have any one definition. So that was not very concise. But I
Oh
think,
yeah, and I'm going to grade you later on that on your definition. It should have been
and
more concise. Damn, no, it's
no,
fine.
sorry.
There's the good thing is it's like that's interesting. There's not a correct answer. There are
That's good.
answers and so
Yeah,
many of them, which is nice. That's the way I like it because otherwise it feels like math.
right.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
need.
no. Can you think of some moments where like you felt particularly happy in your life?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny. I mean, we were just talking about my wedding. And I know that sort of, so when I've taught creative writing, for many years at Mississippi State, I taught the intro to creative writing class, which was a dual genre class. It was poetry and fiction. And when I would teach the fiction unit, we would talk about characters, developing characters, and we would have this list of questions they would answer. And one of them was, what was the happiest moment of your character's life? And I would tell my students, okay, don't just fall back on a cliched happiest moment, like, oh, the day I got married or the day my kid was born or whatever.
Mm.
Um, because that may be true, but it's not that interesting in terms of the character. Now, if that's important for your character, for that to have been their most important memory or their happiest memory, great. But don't just sort of let that be the automatic response. That being said, I think one of my happiest days was my wedding. It was really fun. It was really
Really
fun.
was.
There was so much dancing and everybody that I loved was there. And it was really fun. And I was really, really happy.
And
Um,
everybody was happy there. I mean, it was just
yeah,
joyful.
yes, yes. Everybody was happy. And that was a wonderful thing. And I can think of another one in recent memory. Last summer, my husband Mike and I we took a week-long vacation to Italy. It had been
Ooh.
planned for several years and then got scuttled during COVID. And so we were finally able to make it happen last summer. My mom, my wonderful mother, took the kids for a week. They had a great time. And Mike and I went and we spent 4 nights in the Dolomites where we hiked and then a couple nights in Venice. And I just remember the first day in the Dolomites, we were hiking and it was just the most beautiful place for hiking in this meadow with these wildflowers everywhere, and the air was so clean and the mountains were just these vast gorgeous things. And I was with Mike and I just said, I think this is like one of the happiest moments of my life. And he said, I was just thinking actually that same thing. It was
Oh.
really great. um, so that was one of them too. And then just there's times when I'll be sitting on the couch, with my family watching a movie or whatever. And I just have this sort of step outside your life moment and say, oh, look at this. This is so good. Um,
Mhm.
Dog will be there. Just these moments of contentment, those are big ones too. Little ones,
Yeah, and
a
you're
bit.
enjoying just people around you and just like, this
Yeah.
is nice what we built. Like,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
like these people. Like that moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is beautiful. Um, does the concept of happiness play into your work much?
Yeah, I think, it's funny. I don't know that I have necessarily thought about that in those terms exactly, but now that you say it, I would say it's really central to my work. I don't know if I necessarily call it out that often. I think I do have poems that mention happiness. But I think it's more that my poems, I'm really interested in moments of tension and moments of kind of having moments of juxtaposition, right? So you have this thing contrasting with that thing. I write a lot about climate crisis, and parenting and my sort of utter amazement at the natural world and how deeply I love it, and how I'm also aware that it is just, burning around us, sometimes very literally. And so for me, I think happiness is in those poems, or the idea of happiness is in those poems. It's like this kind of yearning toward it, wanting for the planet to be happy, wanting for all of us to be able to kind of relax into our happiness, into our wonder, but also knowing that, the planet is in really bad shape and there are things that we should be doing, can be doing, are doing to try to help it. But despite all of that, it's still a real moment of very deep crisis. So I think that happiness is in there. It's threaded throughout all of those poems, even if the poems themselves are not necessarily always happy ones. I think the idea of happiness is central.
What's fascinating to me is throughout the vast majority of my academic career, I've spent a lot of time with creative writers. And I am, a scholarly literary critic. So I do something kind of different. And what's always fascinating is hearing someone, a poet, a writer, talk about their work and be like, oh, really? Because because from my perspective, when I read your work, it's there always is this underlying theme about, to me, about understanding, coming to grips with like being a human being and how to live contently.
Yeah.
And so whether it be, how we feel about the natural world, or about parenting, or about fear, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm thinking in particular, like, your poem Planet, and it's talking about how most days I forget this planet, and you
Yeah.
think about like dentist appointments and plagiarists instead and all those various ways, and then has this beautiful, really emotion driven imagery almost about like when you fall into nature and remember what that feels like. And to me, it's like, oh, that's a poem about happiness. Because from my
Yeah.
perspective, which is really cool, with also talking about obviously the planet, but same with the one with some of the poems about the tornado when they're
Yeah.
with their
Hmm.
kids.
Hmm.
And it's, to me, I saw it through the lens of like dealing with fear. So it's always
Yeah.
fascinating to me, like, oh, because yeah, I think all of your poems are about that.
Well, this is why it's so important for creative writers to talk to critics, because then we can say, oh, no, actually, yeah, that you're right. That makes sense. Thank you for for clarifying that. No, because I think you're absolutely right. And they are poems that are about, I like what you said about trying to kind of, what did you say? Trying to sort of find contentment in the world, trying to be a
And your
human in the
place in
world.
it, like,
Yeah.
and how to deal with emotions and, all these external forces and stress and fear. A lot of like, how do we deal with fear on this
Yeah.
journey?
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely accurate. And the essay collection, the memoir that I have coming out in January, is also really deeply steeped in that. That's about my experiences in early motherhood, and how during those days, there's such, everything is so ramped up, and feels so just heightened. And that includes joy and contentment and fear
A
and
lot of fear. Gosh,
so
it's
much
terrifying
fear.
to be a new parent, be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know
No
what I'm
idea.
doing. Yeah.
No idea. No, no. I remember when my first son was born, my mom and stepdad and my sister and her husband all came down to Mississippi because it was over winter break. And so everybody was able to come down for, like a couple weeks. And it was amazing. And everybody was helping. And there was this great community. And it felt so, I was so supported. And everybody left except for Mike and me and our baby. And I just remember it was New Year's Eve and they all left the same day. And the door closed behind them. And Mike and I were just standing there holding our son. And we looked at each other like, now what? How are we supposed to do this? We don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of fear. Um, but also, and this is something I've been thinking about more and more as I get older, also the thrill that comes along with not knowing, with kind of
Mhm.
saying, wow, I have no idea what this is going to be like, and it's like riding a roller coaster, and it's going to crest over this hill and you don't know what's on the other side, but you're just kind of on the ride. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great way to put it. And it seems especially when the kids are little, there's so many stakes and the fear grips you. But I think as we get older and we've gone through all these different phases, we're just like, I wonder what will happen next. Because we know we can't control it. All we
Right.
can do is just ride the roller coaster and hope it's not, too scary.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would so you left academia recently.
I did. Hmm.
Do you want to talk about that choice
Sure.
and why
Yeah.
that
Yeah. No.
happened?
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah, that it was a pretty wild decision. I mean, talk about kind of just getting on the roller coaster and saying, I don't know, that was what we did. So I taught for many years at Mississippi State and I loved it. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful job. It was my first job out of grad school and I was so lucky to get it. My husband was also teaching there. He and I co-directed the creative writing program together. He's a fiction writer. And it was wonderful. We had great colleagues and friends and loved our students, and everything was great. But it was really, really, really far away from our families and from where we had grown up. He's from New Jersey, I'm from Delaware. And when COVID hit, it really sparked in us kind of a recalibrating of priorities, as I think it did for a lot of people. And so we, let's see, in summer of 2020, everything went online, right? We were told that we could teach online for the next semester and our kids were going to go to school online for the next semester. And so we decided to rent an apartment up near my family in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, for a few months, figuring that we could kind of bubble with the grandparents and have some help with the kids while we were teaching. And it was just a lot, as you know, it was a lot to manage. And so we thought that would be a good thing to do. And we did that. And then the pandemic kept going. And so that 6 month period became a year. And then we were able to stay for another 6 months. So really what we thought was going to be like a 5 or 6 month, time away became a year and a half of living
Hmm.
in the same town as my parents and within a couple of hours of both of our sisters and the kids' cousins and everything else. And when we went back to Mississippi, it became clear to us that we really needed to be closer to family. Our priorities had just that part of our lives had become increasingly at the forefront as those COVID months went on, and so we decided to do that thing. We decided we didn't want to try to get other academic jobs somewhere kind of close to family. We just wanted to be in a place, and so we did that. So we spoke to everybody at Mississippi State, and everybody was wonderful. And Mike and I were able to teach online for a little bit longer, to move to Delaware to teach online. And I was still poet laureate of Mississippi, and so I traveled back and forth a lot and did a lot of events in Mississippi, and was able to do a lot of things there remotely because I would have been doing them from my desk no matter where I was. So a lot of that work could happen anywhere, and then I would fly back and do a lot of in-person stuff in the state. Um, but yeah, we moved to Rehoboth, Delaware, and I had lunch with my dad today. And tomorrow, I hope we'll all be able to go to the beach with my mom. And Mike's sister's family was here last weekend, and my sister was down a couple weeks before. And it's just really great and really, really special to get to be near family. And we miss Mississippi. We miss our friends there. We miss our colleagues and our students and our jobs. They were all great. And we're obviously still in touch with our friends from Mississippi. And I mean, those are lifelong friendships. But it's good to be where we are. And it was difficult, but it also feels good to be in this place where we can all be close to other people that we love, and just have access to all of that. So it's been a transition, but it's been good. So it's exciting and
Yeah,
strange.
and academics, don't really get to pick where
No,
they live. So it's good you had the flexibility to be able to make that decision, or even, could make that
yeah,
decision, which is, it can be a hard life because you really don't use in the same way.
right.
So yeah, yeah, I know it well. I know it
Yeah,
very, very
yeah,
well.
no, absolutely. No, and it's been a big shift, but it's great to be here. So yeah, but yeah, interesting to kind of transition away from that part of my identity that had been a huge part of my identity for decades. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. So
Well, tell me about your new project, the Studio and Craft.
yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about this for a while, a couple of years, and I finally sort of launched it this past May. It is I'm calling it a poetry community. And because I realized what I really wanted to do was continue to work with poets, not in an academic setting, because that's not where I am right now, but to get to still work with people at all stages of their writing lives, and careers and experience levels. I really love thinking and talking about poetry, and I love doing it with people who are writing poetry, and just having these conversations. And for me, poetry is an opportunity for play. And so I was really excited to get to engage with the teaching of poetry in a way that didn't involve grading. right? That
Yes.
it's sort of all about choosing to do it and just taking risks and discovering things and playing with language and form and seeing what we can do when we push ourselves beyond our comfort zones. Um, so I offer monthly workshops that are online. I offer standalone sessions. I just did one last week on it was called Resurrect Your Darlings. So it was on breathing new life into abandoned poems. So all those poems that we've said, well, there's some good lines there, but this thing's a disaster. Thinking about ways to kind of bring those back, and reinvigorate them. I offer monthly sessions that are called Enweirdening sessions because I think that it's really
Mm.
important to tap into our weirdness, our innate
I
weirdness.
love that. And weirding. I think that's my life in
Yeah,
weirding.
yeah, right. I mean, I think that we're all pretty weird, but we have to smooth our edges out so much to be a functional person in society, right? Like you don't want to get kicked out of the grocery store. So you've got to kind of find ways. But that being said, we get so practiced at that sometimes I think it can make it difficult to tap back into the wildness that writing requires, and not just writing but living, honestly. But so a chance to kind of play with words, play with writing, develop some strategies to kind of and weirden our creative brains. So I offer sessions on that, and I do manuscript consultations, and I'm also working on getting some local opportunities started. I have the first poetry field trip is going to be happening next week. I was talking with some Delaware poets about how the grown-ups really need field trips too. It's great that kids get field trips, but I want field trips. Field trips are the best. And so um, I talked with the folks at a nature center nearby, and they're going to give a talk on sea creatures and bay life to a group of poets. And then we're going to do
Oh,
a 2 hour writing session based on what we've learned and kind of sit around and write about horseshoe crabs and egrets. So I think it's going to be really exciting. There's lots of
awesome.
opportunity for that. So that's fun. So it's been
Mm.
really exciting to start to develop these things and to think more about what else I'd like to offer and how I want to continue to build this. But it's been a lot of fun, and I've gotten to work with some really great people, and yeah, it's been a blast so far. So I'm excited to see what I can do with it.
I love all those ideas and the way you're approaching them. That sounds like a blast, honestly. Just absolute fun.
You should
Where did
come. It's so
I need to. I know. I was like, how far is Delaware from
yeah, there's
Boston?
do online. You can just do it
And
online. I do weekly writing free sessions on Mondays that are called creative burst sessions. And they're just an hour-long session to write in community with other people on whatever you want to work on. So, show up if you
I
want to.
love that. That
Yeah,
sounds wonderful.
you can write other
Now,
stuff.
as you know, so many things have changed about the way people read and their assumptions on things. And today, where do you think poetry is and where do you think it's headed?
I think poetry is doing beautifully. I think that, every few years there's an article in either the New York Times or the New Yorker or some big newspaper, some big magazine. It's a different one every time, but there's always the Atlantic. There's always a "Is poetry dead?" article, right? I
Mhm.
think this has been happening for maybe like a few hundred years. This is not a discussion.
Mm.
Somebody is always speculating that, oh, poetry is dead. Um, Poetry is so very not dead. And I think it's, if anything, more alive than ever and more widespread. I think that we're really seeing lots and lots and lots of poetry and different kinds of poetry showing up in all kinds of different places. I think social media has actually been really great for poetry, for the
I
sharing of
agree.
poetry. You can share, small things. You can share a screenshot of a poem. You can share something and people can access it easily and read it. We live very, very fast lives, but you can take 2 minutes to read a poem. And I think sometimes when a
Mhm.
poem comes across our feed, it's great to have that little moment of slowing down.
And
Um,
that's what I agree completely. And I think that's one of the things people misunderstand. They expect poetry to only be in a dusty old book. And there's like
yes,
tons of poetry on TikTok and
yes,
Instagram that people don't even recognize necessarily as poetry because it's part of their social media experience.
right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, it's everywhere. And I think that people are engaged with poetry, and there are so many different people writing poetry, and it's showing up in all these different avenues, and you're riding public transportation and there's a poem on the subway or on the bus or whatever. I mean, poems are everywhere, and I mean, they should be more places. I think there should always be more poems places, but I think it's a really exciting time for poetry. So it makes me feel good. A lot of things right now don't make me feel so good about, our world right now, but I feel great about poetry.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day as I was playing around with Microsoft Copilot, and they had to write me a poem, which was absolutely horrific. I mean, it
They're
was
so
like,
bad. Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Oh my
And I
God.
was like, maybe poetry is one of the AI proof fields more so than others because it was so painful. I was like,
Yeah.
ew, did you try?
Right. Yes. I know. No, I have had the same experience, and I've had, in my creative writing classes, and I would always talk really candidly about, please, please, please do not use AI for anything, not for the generative process, not for coming up with ideas. This is all meant to be your brain, your beautiful, messy, weird brain. That's what I want. And most of my students were really great about it. But every once in a while, I got one that was, somebody would try to pass off something, and it was always so clearly AI. There's no mistaking it. It doesn't sound like a person. It sounds like AI. And yeah, it's really bad. So I take some
Yeah,
comfort in
yeah, me too. And I think what it means is that the human brain and its expression that can be given within the poetic form, it can only come from the human brain.
that.
Like the way connections are made, you can't code them out in the same way because they're
Yeah.
so unique to trying to express what it feels like, sounds like, all of it together in one, as well as a context that's larger.
Right.
That AI just can't do that the way a human brain can. So that I came up with that theory literally just now. So
It's great. It's a great theory, and I support it. It's good.
now, do you think that as a culture, as a society in the US, we're moving to become happier or less happy? What do you feel?
I don't think we're moving toward becoming happier, sort of in a more general sense. And I think a lot of that does have to do with technology and with artificial intelligence. I think that, I think that while social media and technology in general can, I think, be a wonderful tool for connecting people, I don't want to kind of put down the entire genre of communication. I think I've used social media in ways that let me stay connected to folks all across the country and the world, and it's wonderful for that. And I think a lot of people do that. That being said, I'm also worried that we're going to lose our ability to just talk to people and just have conversations. And nuance doesn't come through well via text of any kind. And that's just, I don't want us to lose our ability to talk to people and to just have those conversations that are just, they're partly just about being in a room with somebody, even if you're not really saying a lot, you're just there. So I worry about losing that. I worry about losing the satisfaction that comes from creating something because we are farming so many things out to artificial intelligence. There's a real satisfaction that comes from making something, whether it's art or whether it's a really well crafted letter or email or paper or something that you have worked on and thought through and cracked and finessed into what it needs to be. I worry about the sort of dumbing down of all of us, but I also worry about just the loss of moments of happiness that do come from figuring something out and working hard on something and then getting it. So yeah, I don't know. And I think obviously we live in a time of there are a lot of terrible things happening right now, and a lot of terrible things happening to a lot of people, and we're losing rights and we're losing safety, and we're losing the planet. And so, yeah, I mean, not to be too much of a bummer, but I do think
Right. You're
that,
dumbing, you're just bumming out my
I know,
happiness
sorry,
podcast. No, I'm
man, I
kidding.
know, I know. So no, in general, I don't really feel like we're moving toward more happiness. That being said, I also have to stay at least somewhat optimistic. I have to hold on to some hope and say, I think that things can get better. And I think, and I've seen this, so many times, and I know you have too. There are so many people working so hard to make things better. There are so many good people. There are so many people who are doing everything they can to support other people and fight for people's rights and to protect other people and animals and the planet, and who are just generally being kind, in small ways. And all of that matters a lot. And I'm heartened by that, even as I am at times, really not so heartened by some other things happening. But I've seen many, many, many people doing some really amazing things to make things better and succeeding at it. So in that way, I do feel hopeful.
If you like had your way to help move us as a culture more towards happiness, what would you do?
Ooh, oh man. It's a great question. I would
Mm.
I would require people, if if they
Mm.
wanted to put a comment in the comment section of something, I would require them instead to pick up a phone and have a conversation with the person they wanted to comment to.
Mm. Mm.
I think that would be interesting. Um, and I think it would cut down on a lot of glib cruelty that
Mhm.
just fuels much larger sort of systemic choices that are made. I would also, though, I would also try to make sure that everybody got to be outside as much as possible. I think that's a much more sort of that's a much loosey gooseier way to put it. But there's something about being outside that I think is so important and so healing. And I think that, make sure kids have a lot of recess,
Mm.
and make sure that people can have access to public lands and parks and the ability to go to them and take hikes or have accessible trails or whatever it might be, just ways to kind of get people out into the world. um I think it's really kind of magical. I remember in 2020, when we had rented an apartment in Rehoboth, Delaware, and we lived near the woods, and there was a trail through the woods. And I remember some days I would just feel so anxious. If you're reading the news and everything is so terrible and so scary, right? Everything was so scary then. And then I would just go into the woods and I just could feel my entire body just shifting and recalibrating and just kind of, it really was like medicine. Um, I would like everybody to have that.
I agree with you completely. That's the thing that I do too. When everything gets overwhelming, and it's the woods that does it the most, right?
Woods,
Especially the
right?
woods. Yeah.
Yes.
And whether it's in Arkansas or Massachusetts, because they'll be subtly different, and there's
Yep,
all
yep.
these ferns, and they're both magical, absolutely magical. I mean, the only hard thing is Massachusetts. It's so damn cold, and then it gets dark at 3. But,
Oh
you know,
yeah, that's right. The early dark is tough. Yeah.
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
But, even still, you make that go outside, be in the snow, be in the cold, let experience how it feels in your nose. It just might not be as long of a hike.
Right, right, exactly. You can go back in and have hot chocolate, but still you were out there. And that's, yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
it is physically also good for you. It's your eyes need it,
Yep.
your whole body needs it. But it really does for me, same experience. Like when I'm there, then things I was upset about, I can let them go a little more and
Yeah.
only have to carry the things that I can control and not the weight of all of the world, that I was previously carrying when I was sitting on the computer before.
Yeah. Yep.
100%. I agree completely.
Mhm.
So, other than going out in nature, what do you do when you're unhappy?
Well, I mean, I definitely go out in nature. I exercise. This is a weird one for me. I was never I mean, I always liked hiking, but I never did any kind of exercise. I especially never, ever, ever went running. I hated running. I couldn't do it without getting just out of breath instantly. And I hated it my entire life. And then about almost 2 years ago, um, I decided I wanted to try it. And I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I secretly did a 0 to 5K app,
I
eventually.
like that stealth running.
Yeah, no, I was so secretive about it because I felt like if this is just a total bust, I don't need everybody to know that I tried this thing and then failed, right? So I didn't tell anybody for a few weeks, and then I told my best friend and my husband, but that was it. But yeah, then I kept doing it, and so I'm not a great runner. I'm very slow. I mean, I am like super duper slow, but I do it. It makes me feel good. And I like the way that it feels when I have done it. I like the way that it feels to be able to do more of it and to feel my body kind of doing this thing. So that's something that I do now that really surprises me. If you had asked me, 5 years ago about that, I would have thought that was just hilarious because there's no way I was going to run.
Yeah.
So that's something I do.
I had similar experience, and I hate running. I hate it. I hate running during running. I love what I feel like after running.
So
Love it.
good, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's about where I am too. I'm not running like, yes, this is great. I'm running
This
like,
is this runner's high. I have yet I like a decade. I have yet to experience. I have no idea what that is. I'm like runners hate every time. Hate it. Hate it.
so
When it's done, it
uncomfortable, right?
clears it out. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
awful. It feels terrible. But afterwards, it's like it cleaned out all the gunk. And I'm like, oh, I feel
Yeah.
great now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yes. No, I absolutely get that. That is, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
So for all those non-runners out there, it's not you. You can run and hate it.
yeah, no, it's fine. You'll just feel good after, you know?
Yeah. Wait
Yeah.
to that part.
And I turn off my computer. That's the other thing that I do. I move away from screens because it's easy for me to get kind of sucked in and just kind of go down those rabbit holes. And it helps me to just move away from that and just do something, even if it's just like, doing some laundry. It's just a thing that has me not doing that, or I'll go hang out with my family, play a game with one of my kids. It's those things are good. So things that remind
Does
me,
writing make you happy?
writing does make me happy, but it's not something that I turn to when I'm unhappy, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah.
Writing absolutely makes me happy and I love it. And there are times when it feels just amazing to be able to make something and to be able to kind of figure out a thing that I want to say or to play with words, in these ways that are so satisfying. So it absolutely makes me happy. But if I am feeling unhappy, that's not usually when I sit down and try to write, because if I sit down to try to write, and it's one of these many times when it's just not really happening, then I'm just going to feel worse, right? So
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
when I'm feeling down, I try to go for kind of a guaranteed mood booster as opposed to a crapshoot, right? Like if I sit down to write and it goes well and I get something accomplished, then I'm going to feel great. But if I sit down and it's one of those times where I'm just staring at the page, then I'm going to feel worse. So also, I think that my brain tends to work better when I'm feeling generally good. I'm not a writer who feels more productive when I'm feeling down. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So, but yes, I do love writing. It makes me very happy, but it's not my go-to,
Hmm.
sort of mood boost.
Do you ever like a regular schedule when you write?
I don't. And this is something that I've kind of thought about my whole life. When I was first in college and grad school, I feel like there was a lot of that idea out there that, oh, a writer writes every day and a writer has this timeline and, you write it every evening from 7 to 10 or whatever it might be. And even in grad school, that wasn't my thing. Even in grad school, when I could have done that because my time was really flexible and I could have most days had a schedule where I could get that writing done, but that was never how I worked best. And it took me a while to kind of come to terms with that. There was a time when I felt like I was doing something wrong because I wasn't writing every day. I wasn't writing on a schedule, but I've always been somebody who kind of prefers to have time. So rather than writing for half an hour every day, I have tried to do things where I can say, okay, I know I have 3 hours on this day and I can really just sit down and work on these poems then. Um, and then there are also other times when I'm out walking the dog and I get a line in my head and I have to real quick write it down, and that becomes the spark for something. Um, so I don't have a schedule. It's changed throughout my life as my life has changed, as when I was in grad school, I wrote at night a lot. When I had kids and they were young, I could never write at night because I was exhausted. Now I can write kind of at different times of the day or in the evening. And now that I've started this poetry studio and craft, I do, like I was saying, I run these weekly generative sessions. And that's been good for me as well, because I take that time as well. I give a prompt and then we all just get down to writing. And so I actually have been on a little bit more of a schedule for the last few months. And that's actually been really productive for me. So one thing that I have kind of come to terms with is that I think it's very important for us to be flexible in our working lives, in our sort of creative or creating lives, and to be able to know that our approaches will change as our lives change. And that's great, and just kind of try to stay attuned to that.
Do you have any goals for yourself, for your writing, or anything in general? Not that you have to. Here's the thing: people ask me about that, and I'm like, do I need to? Aren't I accomplished enough? And
I'm
that's
doing
what I'm.
fine. Yeah, right. No, I absolutely have goals, and I love having goals. I that is something I have found, is that it's very good for me to have things that I want to work toward, things that I want to accomplish. They're not necessarily huge, lofty, concrete goals. In terms of my work, I mean, I'm always trying to work toward another book, right? So that's always, in kind of a vague sense, that's always on the horizon. A little bit more specifically, right now I am working on certain poems. I'm kind of trying to develop a new project, so I'm thinking about that, and that's exciting. And then right now I'm working on developing this poetry community, and
Mhm.
so I do have the goal of trying to establish that and make that um, a bigger and more developed thing, and to continue building out those classes and thinking about how I can build community in that way. So that's
Mhm.
something that I do have as a goal for myself too. And then I set different goals, periodically. I want to want to become like a master naturalist. I think that would be so cool. I
Ooh.
want to do that
Mhm.
program at some point. Um, there are a lot of things. I want to learn how to cook, but I don't really know how to cook very well. I'd like to do that. So,
Mhm.
there are goals. But I don't have this sort of, oh my gosh, I want to accomplish X by the time I'm X age. I don't have that. So,
Well, I think that's as we get older, it's just like somebody does that still because life's
yeah,
gonna throw what it's gonna throw it. Yeah, you know, and just
exactly.
yeah. Um, we're coming close to the end of our time, so I only have two more questions. One is, do you have any words of advice you would give people about happiness?
Hmm. Okay, that's a great question. Words of advice I would give people about happiness. Okay. I think I would say to do your best to listen to and trust yourself on what makes you feel happy. I think that when I was younger, and I think a lot of people do this, I would have these ideas of what was supposed to make me happy, or what was supposed to kind of fit in with the version of myself that I thought I was or wanted to be. And that wasn't always true. Right. So as I got older, I was able to, I think, have a clearer understanding of myself and of what I wanted and of the things that did make me happy. Um, I'm thinking about even when I was, 14, 15, a kid, and thinking about, oh, well, do I want to be like this kind of person or this kind of person? Do I want to wear flannel and, listen
Mhm.
to grunge, or am I more of like a hippie girl? Do I want to wear these like peasant dresses? And the answer was like, I kind of wanted to do all those things. And then I mean, I did eventually, but I remember starting high school and really feeling like, oh no, I don't know which version of myself I want to choose, and feeling like I had to follow a particular thing. Um, and that continued in different ways, I think, throughout my 20s. So it's really nice now to not feel like that anymore. So I would say to try to trust what really makes you happy, and trust, listen to yourself when you're around people, and be around people who make you feel good. Don't be around
Mhm.
people who make you feel bad.
That's great advice because
I know,
so many people
I know.
don't follow it.
I mean, it sounds so incredibly simple and obvious, but yeah, I think there are times, especially for me when I was younger, where I might have thought, well, but this feeling, this is like, it's supposed to feel difficult. It's supposed to feel, um, sad. It's supposed to feel whatever. This is what this is. I'd romanticize certain things, and that wasn't fun at all. You know? I mean, my family is really fun. I like being in my house with these people, and that's what I want to do. So
I love
that,
that. It's true. If it feels like crap, why do we keep doing
I
it?
do it. Yeah.
100%. And the last question, also I end with the easy one. You get one or two songs that are your favorite to put on the playlist.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes, the Happy US
Mm,
playlist. And
okay.
I leave this wide open. I don't even
Okay.
say like it has to be about happiness or it has to do, you
Okay.
get to choose.
Okay. 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 When I think about sort of moments of happiness, I think about driving with the windows down with certain
Mm,
songs on, right? So
mhm.
so I don't think I'm gonna pick. I don't even know what my favorite song is. I love a lot of songs. I don't think I can say
Yeah.
my favorite song, but I can tell you a song that is a go-to when I want to drive with the windows down and it's like nice weather for the first time in the season and everything, which is Rudy Can't Fail by The Clash.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
that's one that I find, it's a
Uh,
really good driving with the windows down song. So
I, I love that. I wrote it down.
thank
Yeah,
you.
because that feeling, that's one of the most magical. When you're singing at the top of your lungs and just not a care, just go, go, go,
Yes,
right?
the
Oh, it's beautiful.
best. Just the
Yeah.
best.
And we all have to have go-to songs for that. Where you're like, yes, it is time for my concert experience.
Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
and this car.
Yeah. You're welcome, everybody on the road with me tonight. You're
Exactly.
welcome.
I'll look
Mhm.
over and I'll be like, I'm singing. I'll sing at
Mhm.
them. I don't care.
You're singing for them. It's to
That's
them.
right.
It's a gift.
It's a shared experience. They can enjoy it
Exactly.
or not.
Exactly.
Never said it was good. It's just
Doesn't
exuberant.
have to be. It's the experience.
Katie, it was magical to talk to you.
So good to talk to you too. It's so great to see you
Yeah.
again.
And write more and more poetry because I absolutely adore your writing. Everybody check out Catherine Pierce's poetry, and you will love it too
Thank you.
because it's amazing. So thank you.
And thank you so much. I love this project too. I'm so excited to have been on here. So thank you for inviting me to have this conversation. This was awesome.
Well, I'm so glad you said yes. And
That's fantastic.
yeah, and hopefully we'll get to talk again soon because I miss you.
I miss you too.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.